Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala khatimil anbiya, ashraf al-mursaleen, wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een, amma ba'd. To pick up in the life of Khadijah radiallahu anha, and Khadijah radiallahu anha, many people assume they know everything about her because she's well known and you hear about her in different durus and halaqat and things. But inshallah, you will learn some new things. The first thing, who can tell me what was her laqab even before Islam? I mean, her name is Khadijah, yes, and her kunya, Qasim, you can say, right? But the Arab used to give titles. Like what was some of the titles given to the Prophet ﷺ before Islam? Al-Amin, Al-Sadiq. What about Khadijah radiallahu anha? That's a kunya. Hala would also be a kunya. Her laqab al-Tahira. Yani she was known to be pure. And today we just name people Tahira, this, that, but these were things that wasn't a name given. This was a laqab, that was a title earned from her piety and her purity even before Islam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose such a person for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Now, we already discussed the early part of her life and her marriage to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in the beginning of the da'wah. Here we begin when the risala, the wahi began. When the message was given to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Quran, it was revealed, "Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq," in Surah Al-Alaq, the first ayat, to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at this time, he saw Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam first in not his actual form. Yani, this is something very amazing. Like if you think about it, like me and you, we're humans. And Rasul ﷺ was a human, and he was a human being, even though he was the best of mankind. So, as a human being, if you see something out of the ordinary, it shocks you. Like imagine if you're walking and you just see like a huge mountain just pop up. Like every one of us would go in shock, right? And if that mountain, for example, spoke to you, you would start to question your own sanity. Because we're humans. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if he saw Jibreel right away in his form, maybe it would be too much. So he saw Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, but not in his actual form at first. But then, as he was leaving the ghar, and in 2 times, as mentioned in the Quran itself, he saw Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam in his actual form, in his own. And imagine, in the Sahih Ahadith, as reported Imam al-Bukhari in his Sahih, another riwayah, Imam Muslim in his Sahih as well, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that when I saw Jibreel in his form, he filled the space between the earth and the heavens. Yani when I looked at him, I couldn't see above. Like imagine a being so big. And that's, you should ponder upon the greatness of Allah. That if you look, you cannot see east to west, north to south, up the sky, everything is covered. As Imam al-Bukhari mentioned in his Sahih, the Jibreel ﷺ has wings that there are 600 of. He has 600 wings. As they mentioned in the Musnad Imam Ahmad, an authentic narration that each one would cover the horizon east to west. Imagine. And that's what Rasulullah said, that when I saw him, I couldn't see anything else. He filled that whole place. Imagine if one of his wings would cover east to west, the entire horizon that you see. Imagine 600 of those. And that is Jibreel, an abd of Allah, a slave of Allah, a malik, an angel. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was first visited by Jibreel, then squeezed and told to recite, and then the beginning of Quran was revealed to him, and then he saw Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam in his actual form, he went into a state of shock, as any human would. Yani, This is a fadl, a virtue, or a benefit from Allah, that Allah even protected him. Imagine somebody could have just had a heart attack right there. So the first thing he did, he went home. And he told his wife, Khadijah radiallahu anha, Zammiluni, Zammiluni. Yani cover me. And the hadith that Imam Bukhari has mentioned in his Sahih, this is where the ayat, Ya ayyuhal mudaththir came. And then later, Ya ayyuhal muzammil. So, what is the first thing he did? He went to his wife. And that's very important. There are very important lessons you're going to learn today, especially for the sisters, but also for the brothers. Look at how close a relationship they had, that the first one that he wanted to discuss this issue with before his friends, before his family, his blood relatives, was his wife. She was that close to him, she was that comforting to him, she was that loyal to him, she was that much of somebody who wanted nasiha, yani well-wishing for him, that's the first person he went to. And here, when she covered him and comforted him, she didn't tell him, what's wrong with you? What's going on? She didn't freak out. And imagine, your husband goes out to a cave by himself for days, doesn't come home, like already women would be like, what's going on? And then he comes home freaked out, cover me, like, you know, a lot of women would put some doubt, or would put, yani, what's wrong with this guy? But this is the character of Khadijah radiallahu anha, that she didn't, instead she comforted him. Physically by covering him, emotionally by talking to him. Here Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he shared with her what he saw, and he asked her, what do you think? Yani, you think I'm losing? Like, what's going on? The incident itself we covered in the Seerah Dars in detail. I'm not going to go over, but what's important here was her response. And this is mentioned in the Sahihain, yani in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari and Muslim. These are all authentic narrations, where she told him, like when he said, do you think that, you know, I've lost my mind, like what do you think? She said, Kalla, never, no way. She didn't just tell him, La. Kalla has an emphasis, no way. It cannot be, never. Abshir. She told him, rejoice, glad tidings, abshir. Imagine your husband comes out of being gone for days and days, and he's freaking out, he's got, you know, he's shaking, and you're covering him, and you're telling him, abshir. Like I'm saying, in our time, it will be very difficult. Here she tells him, abshir, verily that Allah will never disgrace you, Allah will never waste you, Allah will never, even though this is before Islam. But the Arab, they knew the word Allah, they knew there was a Khaliq. It's not that the Quraysh were mulhideen, like they weren't atheists. They knew there was Allah, but what was their shirk? They put people between them and Allah. They said, we can't make dua to Allah directly. We have to go through Lat and Uzza. Like the Hindus, they say the same kind of thing. They say, oh, we believe in one God, but we're going to worship the rat and the monkey, anything else, to be between us. Buddhists, many of them will say the same thing. Many Christians will say, we believe in one God, but we worship through Jesus. And this is something that many of the people that take the label of Islam also say, istighatha and this, we're going to worship through a saint. Oh, Allah is so high, how can you make dhikr of Allah directly? No, you go through this pir. La, this is shirk, and that is the shirk of the Quraysh. So here Khadijah radiallahu anha, she tells him, no way, Allah will never waste you. But what is most important is what were the characteristics she mentioned. Now imagine, for our sisters, imagine here your husband is in that type of situation. Well, you don't know what's going on. You haven't seen Jibreel alayhi salam. Like sometimes you tell somebody, you know, we're going to go do this or that. And they're like, well, I didn't see it. I don't know what's really going on. No. You have to have that trust. Here, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is telling his wife something unbelievable. For everybody else, that would be the miracles of Prophet hadn't happened yet. The moon hadn't split yet. Water did not flow from his hands yet. Sahaba later, they saw Jibreel alayhi salatu wasalam, not in his actual form, but they saw him, right? And they saw Malaika and Badr and things, but none of that had happened. This is the beginning. And even at that time, look at the beautiful example she set for all women to come. She told him, Abshir, glad tidings. Allah will never waste you. Why? Now, there are different riwayat. These are all sahih ahadith. I will mention 4 of the things she said. Notice a couple of things. First, none of them are physical attributes. None of them are because you're so handsome, because you're so tall, because you're so intelligent, no. The first thing she said, you keep good relations with your kin and kith, with your family. You keep good relations with your family. That's the first thing. You don't break the ties of kinship. And as the ulama of Islam, this even extends to how you deal with your neighbors and so on. The second thing she said, you help the poor. And those people in need, those people that are struggling, you help them. The third thing she says, that you serve your guests generously. And ikram al-diyuf, this attribute of being hospitable to your guests was something the Arab had even before Islam. Even though today, many times we're losing it today. Today, if there is some interest or some political agenda, or you want them to get them to your restaurant or something, like that goes on, One of the ulama said the first bid'ah that we saw in Hijaz, we saw ourselves, were when people started charging people for coming. What we see, funduq and fanadiq and hotels now and so on, Before, the Arab would take pride that they would host the people coming for Hajj and Umrah. And then she continues, and you assist those that are in need, that have been afflicted with calamities. Helping those in need, helping those that are going through hardship. These are the characteristics that the Prophet ﷺ had, that because of which Khadijah radiyallahu anha said, there is no way Allah will waste you. Because she knows that Allah loves these characteristics. That Allah loves those and protects those and doesn't let those to go to waste that have these beautiful characteristics. And again, none of them are physical. It's not because, oh mashallah, your skin is so dark or so light or so your eyes are green or brown or none of that. It's all about how you act. When I was thinking about this dars and I was writing down my notes, we don't want to discuss this as if it's just something from the past. The tests from Allah continue today. Al-bala, the tests, fitan. Now just imagining somebody, she's not like a teenager with no kids. She has kids. She has a household. Imagine her husband just comes and acts like this. Be like, the father of my children lost his mind. I want to get my kids away from him. Let me go get the restraining order. He's crazy. But here, she had a reason to believe that what he was saying is true. Why? Because of his honesty. Because of his good character. Because she knew that this type of a man never lies. Khadijah radiallahu anha, she comforted the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam physically. She covered him up. She sat with him. Emotionally, she told him, Abshir, glad tidings, don't think this is anything. Don't know that this is something true. Because you are such a person. She praised him. Today, many times, a spouse will only see the faults of a spouse. And they never see the good of it, unfortunately. And that's why we should change that. Alhamdulillah, when you see those that work together, you see the da'wah spreads. I couldn't do what I do if it wasn't for the support of my family. A wife and kids and mother. Why? Because you need that support. And when you don't have it, then the da'wah cannot spread. You can't fight outside and inside. Khadijah radiallahu anha, she gave him that support, but then in a practical step, she told him, I'll take you to my cousin, Waraqah ibn Nawfal, and he is somebody that studied the scriptures of the past, and he knows about these things. Now there are some narrations that mention that even before some noise came from a statue, and some said this was a rabbi and so on, that said that if there is a man who gets the wahi, then you should marry him, and the women of Quraysh. And we hear this, but these are weak narrations. They are da'if narrations, even though many well-known speakers use them, but they're weak. We don't want to depend on da'if narrations. But we do know Waraqah ibn Nawfal was somebody that used to study scripture. And what we also know is that he was not somebody that worshipped other than Allah. He did not worship Isa ibn Maryam. He did not worship the way, others would worship idols and so on. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with Khadijah radiallahu anha, when they went to him, he was very old. At this time he was already old. And when he explained, the Prophet ﷺ explained to Waraqah ibn Nawfal about what he saw, he told him, this is the same messenger that came to the Prophet before you. And he told him, Ya laythani, I wish that I was shaban, I was young, so I could support you when your people kick you out. Rasulullah ﷺ told him, what? People love me. He had put the stone to Hajar al-Aswad to solve the dispute between the Quraysh, and they honored him and they loved him and they called him Sadiq and Amin, and the most trustworthy, and he was loved. He said, how could my people turn against me? Waraqah ibn Nawfal said, I've read the scriptures and nobody has been brought a message like you except that his people turned against him. Waraqah ibn Nawfal, he died very early on. And this is one of the waswas that sometimes the shayateen min al-ins, Christians and atheists bring. Oh, Waraqah ibn Nawfal wrote the Quran. I don't know how Waraqah ibn Nawfal knew the future of what happens in Badr and Hunayn and things. He died in the first few days. That's why there is even a discussion amongst ulama whether he was considered a Sahabi or not. Some of the ulama said he died so young, so early in the time of Islam, even though he was elder in age, that he's not considered a Sahabi. He's considered from Ahlul Fitra, and those people that were upon Tawheed before the time of Rasulullah, and they were. And no doubt that he is in Jannah because Rasulullah saw a dream and gave the glad tidings of it. But is he a Sahabi or not? There's khilaf. But we know that within the first few days of the Risala, he passed away. Those ahadith that mention him seeing the punishment of Bilal are munqati', there's weak ahadith. And we know he died early. And the Quran was revealed in accordance to things that were going on. Like the Hijrah, like Badr, like Hunayn, even Khandaq, all the way to Tabuk and things. Where's Waraqah ibn Nawfal? So here, Waraqah ibn Nawfal, he didn't even hear much of the Quran. Only the few ayat that Rasulullah ﷺ had been revealed at that time that said him. But he did believe in him. So what is the correct opinion is that he is a Sahabi. Because he believed in what he saw. He believed in Allah. He believed in the Quran that was revealed. He believed in Rasulullah ﷺ that he was a true prophet. He's Muslim. He's a Sahabi. Even though he probably never made a single salah in the way that we know salah. Waraqah ibn Nawfal, with his death, Khadijah radiallahu anha, she was still supporting. One of the things they started to do, now this is early, there is no 5-time salah at this time, but there is salah. Meaning Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from what the Arab knew from Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam, he used to worship Allah. He used to make sujood to Allah, but it wasn't like Dhuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, Qiyamul Layl, Duha, no. But Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the first things he did is when he went home with his wife Khadijah, he prayed with her. SubhanAllah, how beautiful is that? And that's why Ibn Kathir says that the first person from this ummah to make sajda to Allah after the prophethood of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Khadijah radiallahu anha. SubhanAllah, ever think about that? Yes, we know she's the first Muslim. Yes, we know the first Shahida for Islam was Sumayya radiallahu anha. We discussed her. Yes, but did you know the first Muslim to make sajda to Allah, salah, with Rasul alayhi salatu salam, was Khadijah radiallahu anha, a woman, and his wife. And they prayed together. And that's why I advise brothers, when you get married, don't worry about the first night, where you're going to go and no, pray together. And it's such a beautiful thing when a husband and wife pray together. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu was raised in the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And most of you that were there in the Seerah Durus, you will know why. Why? Because Abu Talib had run into financial difficulties and he had many kids. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tried to make it easy for him. He took Ali ibn Abi Talib, was raising him. He was young boy. And the orders of hijab and things were not there at the time anyway. So Ali ibn Abi Talib, he mentions the hadith, he says, I came in and I saw them praying together. And I didn't know what it was. So he asked them about it. Ali was not Muslim at this time. And he asked them, so imagine that prayer became a da'wah already. Here, Khadijah radiallahu anha and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they explained the salah and what they knew from it. Making sajda to Allah, to the one Allah. There was no wudu and these ahkam were not there yet. And they gave da'wah together to Ali radiallahu. And as we know, Ali radiallahu, he went and he thought about it, and then he came back later and he became Muslim in secret at first and then openly. Now, in another narration, we also see that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went with Khadijah radiallahu anha and he prayed with her in front of the Kaaba. Another Sahabi was not Muslim at that time. He said, I saw a man and his wife praying in front of the Kaaba. And I didn't know what it was. And then I asked. So the ulama said she was also the first one to make salah in jama'ah in front of the Kaaba. From the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously Ibrahim alayhi salam and Ismail alayhi salam and things are before. When the da'wah began, when the hardships came, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went out to the Quraysh and he told them, Ya ma'ashar al-Quraysh, O people of Quraysh, fa'abadullah, worship Allah, mukhlisan, sincerely, la sharika la, there is no sharik for him. When he brought that da'wah, the attacks and hardships and boycotts, everything they could throw at him, they tried. Physical attacks, financial restrictions, everything we know. At that time, Khadijah radiallahu anha sacrificed herself for Islam. For her husband's da'wah, she spent her own wealth. Not just like, where are you spending your money? Why are you buying this? Why are you spending it on this? Why are you going for Hajj? You didn't buy me gold yet, this. No. She took her own money and spent it. She took her health and sacrificed it. She went through all those hardships with a smile. That when he alayhi salatu would come in the house, after all that hardship outside, she would be the comfort for him. She would be that support for him, that love for him. That as long as she was there and he was married to her, he never even took a second wife. Because she took care of his needs in such a way. He would cry, alayhi salatu wasalam, remembering her in Medina. When her daughter from her other husband, and from before, would come, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would become happy. When her son from her other husband would be there, he would become happy. When he would get something, I'm going into the future now, I'm talking about later, when she had passed away after Hijrah in Medina, when he would get some gift sent to him, she can't send it to her, she's passed away, he would send it to her friends and relatives. That's loyalty. And for her brothers, look at that. Aisha radiallahu anha, she became upset one day. Said, Ya Rasulullah, yani, why are you still crying over Ajuz and Quraysh, yani the old one from the Quraysh? Allah gave you something better. Rasulullah became upset. He says, no, she supported me when nobody supported me. She believed in me when nobody believed in me. Nobody can do what she did for me. Khadijah radiallahu anha sacrificed herself. Her wealth, her health, her life, everything. At the point when she was dying, I want you to understand her mindset. And this is the Musnad Imam Ahmad. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the time of her death is giving her glad tidings of Jannah, and he's telling her that Allah will marry to me Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun, and Maryam, the mother of Isa, to me in Jannah. Now imagine today, a woman at the time of death and her husband's telling her, you know, in Jannah I'm going to have this other wife with you, but another one as well. I'd be like, what? Imagine how upset women would get. This is the difference. Khadijah radiallahu, she tells her, may Allah bless you for it. This is a statement they used to use, was different in Jahiliyyah. Now we say, Yani Allah mabarak lakuma wa alaykuma wa jama bainaka bil khair. These are the adhkar taught to us now. But she gave glad tidings at the time of death. May Allah bless you. What better could they get? Because nobody in Jannah will be single. If a man dies not being married, Allah will marry him to a woman from the women of dunya. And a woman dies without being married, Allah will marry her to a man from the men of Jannah. Because in Jannah is a place of enjoyment. And this is the way when you have the spouses together, that's how you enjoy it. Asiya, the wife of Fir'aun, her husband's in a nar. But she was a woman, we talked about her in the first that she was such a pious woman that Allah will reward her by being married to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Maryam alayhi salam, the mother of Isa ibn Maryam, she was a virgin. And when she is in Jannah, Allah will reward her by being married to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Khadijah at the moment of death, this news makes her happy. There is a hadith. Imam al-Bukhari has it in his Sahih, hadith number 3820. Imam Muslim has it in his Sahih, hadith number 2432. Where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was sitting with Jibreel alayhi salam. And Khadijah radiallahu anha was coming with a pot of food. Look at her, she's always in service of her husband. And now Rasulullah sallallahu had not seen her yet. But Jibreel alayhi salam gives him the news that Ata is coming. Who's coming? Khadijah is coming. Khadijah is coming, and she's coming with a bowl of food. And when she comes, balligha, and he gives to her as-salam from her Rabb and from me. Allahu Akbar. فَقْرَأَ عَلَيْهَا السَّلَامِ مِنْ رَبِّهَا وَمِنِّي. Allahu Akbar. Imagine today that Elon Musk sends you a text personally. Actually him, blue checks and everything. Imagine how excited you would get. Imagine if Trump or Biden, depending which side of the political spectrum you're on, gives you a call himself. Like actually himself. Imagine if the king of a particular country, pick a country, sends an envoy specially for you. Ya Aba Ibrahim, we've come here from the king of Fulan and we brought all these gifts. He's inviting you and he's sending salam personally to you. And for the more pious amongst us here, imagine if a huge scholar, like somebody you really look up to, imagine when Shaykh ibn Baz was alive, that he sent somebody, or Shaykh ibn Uthaymin, or Shaykh Albani, or so on, that they sent a particular person specially to you, by name. Imagine how excited you would be. Today, if some famous TikToker comes to your house to see you and sends you a greeting himself, imagine you would lose sleep. Imagine Imam Ahmad or Shafi'i, and for those that are more pious, this example would work better, right? Imam Malik or Abu Hanifa himself comes to you or sends a messenger to you. Forget all of that. Jibreel alayhi salatu salam is sent with a message directly from Rabbul Alameen to send salam to this woman. This is a love story. This is love. All that fake nonsense of Romeo and Juliet, they're fake. It's not real. Oh, it's so romantic. How is it romantic? They both killed themselves. They never went through hardships together. They never went through hard times together. They didn't travel together. Goths committed suicide. They weren't brave enough to live through life. Majnoon, Layla. What Majnun Layla? What did they go through? When you stick together through good and bad and hardships and good times, and you support each other for the sake of Allah, that is love. The story of Khadijah radiallahu anha, the real story, that is love. That earned what? Salam from Rabbul Alameen. Not only was she given the salam from Rabbul Alameen and from Jibreel alayhi salam, but it was told, وَبَشِّرَهَا, and give her the glad tidings of Baytin fil Jannah, of a house in Jannah, min qasab. Qasabin, what's qasab? Cane, sugar cane, right? How many Arab do you have here? Come on, man. What's qasab? Cane, bamboo, right? A house of bamboo? This is why you never explain Quran or Hadith with your Ammiya. فقال ابن كثير وابن حجر الأسقلاني, ابن كثير, ابن حجر, they explain that this is القصب, المعنى هنا اللؤلؤ. Even though today qasab is used for sugar cane or bamboo, but in here in the hadith the meaning is given of lu'lu, of a pearl that is decorated with gems. And they brought this meaning not from themselves but from a hadith. There is a hadith by Abdullah ibn Abi Awfa, who's also a Sahabi, who explained this hadith and said, Al-Qasab here, the meaning is that it is a lu'lu, it is a large pearl, that the entire palace, qasr, will be made out of one pearl. And it will be hollowed and decorated with gems and jewels, the like of which you could not imagine in dunya. Like, this is the glad tiding given. La sakhaba, there is no bothering or noise. Wala nasaba, and there is no tiredness or boredom. This is the hadith, same hadith, yeah? That this mansion, this castle made of a single pearl, is so beautiful that there is no annoying sounds. No kids running around, no traffic outside, no freeway next to you that doesn't let you sleep, no train that goes by, no cars honking, no helicopters, or nothing that would disturb your peace. And you never get tired or bored in it. This dunya, you can never enjoy. Even if you enjoy it, it becomes boring. Abu Ishaq al-Shatibi, he said, لا يوجد في الدنيا, you will never find in dunya that which is kamil kullaha, that which is complete, all of it. Another riwayah, another part of it, he says, لا وجد في الدنيا لذة, you will not find in dunya an enjoyment kamila min kulli wajh, that it complete from every angle. What does that mean? In dunya, let's say you love a particular ice cream, and I lock you in a room like the movie Saw, and I don't know if they did this, I didn't watch the movie, but just an example. and I tell you, you have to eat 30 tons of it. Man, wallahi, you will hate that ice cream after a while. You will hate the name of it, the smell of it, even if it's your favorite thing in the world. Yeah? Because in this dunya, you're not meant to enjoy something forever. So everything gets boring. Everything gets, you get sick of it. But Jannah is a place of enjoyment forever and ever. So that house in Jannah is such, you will never get bored of it. You will never get tired of it. You will never get sick of it. Every time it will look to you more beautiful than the last. A few points from this hadith. When you are given the glad tidings of Jannah, as Ibn Kathir he mentions, one, you're guaranteed entrance into Jannah. You know, we talk about if you do this, you'll get a tree in Jannah, you'll get a house in Jannah. The beautiful thing about that is if Allah promises you something, Allah fulfills His promise, you will enter Jannah. Second, it will never be destroyed or degenerate or go bad. Like in dunya, if you ever travel to other countries, you will find castles in ruins. I'm sure at one time it was beautiful, but you go there now, it's just spider and cobwebs and dirt and nasty. You go to certain places where there are gardens. Gardens, beautiful gardens. But today when you go there, they're ruined. Over here, there used to be the Mughal gardens. Just dirt now. Because if you don't keep up with it, in dunya, everything goes bad. But in Jannah, it never goes bad. And the last point there is if somebody enters Jannah, they will never be kicked out of it. It will never end. In dunya, if you build for yourself the most luxurious house and have the most luxurious life, a day will come you won't have it. Either somebody will take it from you. You could be a king and somebody will overthrow you. You could be a president of a company and there'll be like a board that'll revolt against you and you'll be forcefully kicked out, whatever. And if nothing else, you'll die. Nothing lasts forever here. But in Jannah, once Allah gives you that glad tidings, that thing, it will last forever. So this is why whatever she went through, the hardships and sacrifices, her own wealth spent for Islam, her own health spent for Islam, wallahi, it was worth it. In the 10th year after Nabuwah, after the years of exile and hardships on her health and wealth, she passed away from this dunya. When she passed away, in the Sahih Hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was sitting there crying. And a woman came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is 10 years after Nabuwah, so Muslims were many at this time. And so, O Messenger of Allah, you have kids, you have a house, you need a wife. You should marry somebody else now. While she was alive, you didn't marry anybody, but now that she's gone, you need somebody to run the house. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam turned to her and said, who could take the manzil of Khadijah? Like who could take the maqam? Who could take the place of Khadijah? Nobody. This is going to be the end for the dars of Khadijah radiyallahu anha, but before I finish, point number 1, brothers, learn to deal with your wives. And this is for me, a nasiha. The way Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam dealt with Khadijah radiyallahu anha. Sisters, before you go home and tell your husband, you know how Rasulullah, think about yourself. Do you support your husband like that? Do you trust your husband like that? Do you encourage your husband like that? Do you sacrifice for your husband like that? If not, then deal with him like Khadijah radiyallahu anha dealt with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this will bring the true romance, the true love, the everlasting love, the love that will be with you in Jannah. This will bring you success in dunya and akhirah. These are our mothers, these are our examples, these are those that Allah gave the glad tidings of Jannah to in dunya. These are those that Allah from above the samawat sent the salam through Jibreel alayhi salam to them. So let them be our examples. Wa jazakumullahu khairan.